The opinions and views expressed in the following program are those of the speakers and the host, and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and your sports network. Hello, everybody. Welcome inside a Wednesday episode of Running Point. Wednesday episode of Running Day. What am I doing, Scotty?
It's all right. It's the top of the show, so you
There's
get,
plenty
you
of room
get
to improve.
one mess up.
Scotty Minter on my right, my sidecar, my buddy, joining us every Wednesday. Scotty, how are we doing today, buddy?
I'm good. I'm ready to rock and roll today. I know you're good with your Chiefs and your Royal. You got your all decked out in Royals gear.
It's game day,
They
buddy.
got big
It's game day.
wins.
Game day in Baltimore. Hopefully we get a win. We move on to the DS.
Yeah, and we'll see. Maybe we will meet again.
Well, it would have to be in the ALCS, which would be really exciting.
It would be for us. Can you imagine?
Ooh. That show might get violent, Scotty.
Yeah, it might get by. I still gotta bring you a hat.
I know, and you better do it next week because I told you one of the stipulations. I'm not wearing it during a day where we're playing each other. So I will definitely wear it during a show. I am a man of my word, and it's just one snippet that I will not do. I cannot wear the Guardians hat while we're playing the Guardians in the ALCS. So maybe next week. That should be during the. Still be during the divisional series, which starts on Saturday, I believe. So we should be rocking next week, hopefully.
Yeah, we should be. Let's hope. Fingers crossed.
All right, Scotty. Let's waste no further time. Let's go into the scoreboard and see what went down last night on ysnlive.com. Scotty, who's the scoreboard brought to you by?
Burnett Pools. We've got it all. Spas and hot tubs.
I think we should get a call in. I think they should re-record that song with your vocals, man.
You think?
I think so. The YSN scoreboard is a great tool for our fans, whether you're at one of the games or watching one of our broadcasts. Either way, you don't want to look away from the screen for too long, and the YSN scoreboard is a great way to get live updated scores from your favorite teams across the YSN family. It can be found at ysnlive.com/scores, and as Scotty just brilliantly told you, it can be found it is presented by Burnett Pool, Spas, and Hot Tubs. Let's dive into it. A lot of volleyball last night as we are down to the final 2 weeks of the regular season before we start talking about tournament time. Brackets will be out Sunday night. Hard to believe we are there. Orange is hosting Chagrin Falls, and they fall 3-1. Edgewood goes on the road to Conneaut, gets the sweep of the Spartans. Big one for Edgewood tonight. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we preview the night's action. Jefferson gets the sweep over Lakeside in the CVC and in Ashtabula County. Badger goes on the road at Grand Valley and gets the win 3-1. Howland goes on the road, beats Salem 3-0. Girard, tough 3 sets, but a 3-set victory nonetheless for them over Hubbard. This sets up a big matchup on Thursday. Both Girard and Lakeview took care of their league opponents last night. So that means when they play on Thursday, it is first place on the line. If Lakeview wins, they'll take a 2-game lead. If Girard wins, they will set up the tie. So a big one, big one, big one on Thursday because both teams took care of business last night. Austintown Fitch had pink night in their game and another 4-set match with Boardman. Boardman has taken a set in each match against Fitch, but Fitch prevails anyway in 4 sets, 3-1. Mohawk tough one on the road against Laurel. They fall in 5 sets, 3-2. Campbell Memorial spoils the home game for Jackson Milton as they win in 4, 3-1. A little bit of a note here, though. Jackson Milton's Grace Johns, their libero, their great libero, by the way, got her 1,500th career dig, so she's climbing that dig board in Jackson Milton's program. Canfield goes on the road, gets the win against Warren Harding, 3-0, the final score there. Champion and Crestview do in battle. Crestview gets the win over Champion. We'll come back. We'll talk about Crestview after the scoreboard, but I was digging a little bit, Scotty, because I was interested. And there's some interesting numbers to go over from Crestview season this year inside the MVAC. We go to Columbiana. They played back-to-back against the Bears. They get the win on the road 3-0 in a sweep. East Palestine falls to United 3-0 in a sweep. Garrettsville Garfield goes on the road, sweeps Newton Falls 3-0. LeBray gets the win over Liberty in a straight set sweep. So does Lakeview over Poland in a straight set sweep. Lakeview's Molly Stewart gets her 500th career kill. That's pretty impressive considering that she's only been the outside hitter for 2 years for Lakeview. So 2 years, 500 kills for Molly Stewart. Wellsville gets the win over Lisbon in straight sets. Beaver beats Mars, not the planet, Scotty. They didn't beat the planet, unfortunately.
Couldn't take down the whole planet.
Just the high school. You know, the planet did not come and invade Beaver, PA. I was scared for a minute when I heard that. I said, "Uh-oh, man, Martians attack."
Martians, I believe in UFOs.
Okay. Have you seen the movie Mars Attack?
I have not.
Oh my gosh, it's an old like 90s comedy, kind of comedy / action movie, where literally like Martians attack Earth. It's hilarious. You gotta watch it. You'll feel like you're watching a fever dream because it's so kind of out there, but it's hilarious. Southeast goes to Brookfield, and the Pirates get the 3-2 win in 5 sets. An exciting one for Southeast. Southern gets the win over Valley Christian in straight sets. Niles and Struthers do in battle. It is the Wildcats that sweep the Dragons. Ursuline gets the straight set victory over East 3-0. Waterloo falls to McDonald in straight sets 3-0. We have Lowville and Western Reserve. The Blue Devils take care of the Rockets in straight sets. Blue Devils have a tough one tonight against Crestview at home. Beaver Local will go to Steubenville, and they get the win 3-0. Perry, 3-1 victory over Hawken. Middle Ridge gets revenge on the Tigers as Springfield earlier in the season beat Middle Ridge in 5. Not so fast this time around. Middle Ridge flips the table, wins in 4 sets. Ashtabula St. John still undefeated on the season. They get the win over 12. Win Shocker 3-0. The final score there. Wyndham gets the win 3-0 over Bloomfield. JFK 3-0 win over St. Thomas Aquinas. And Shocker, Scotty. Another good team against Hoban and another sweep for the Knights. They are very, very good in volleyball. Let's go to boys soccer in Ashtabula County. Edgewood gets a 2-1 win over Jefferson. Pymatuning Valley falls to Grand Valley 6-0. South Range beats Lakeview 2-0 the final score there. Perry, they fall to Open Door Christian 5-0. Boardman gets the 4-3 edge over Warren Harding. Canfield wins over Howland 2-0. West Branch beats Salem 4-2. Beaver Local with the 4-2 win over St. Clairsville. East Liverpool, they win over Cambridge 3-0 on the road. Middle Ridge cannot protect their home floor, or I should say field, as Bristol comes to town and beats Middle Ridge 4-1. United all over Carrollton, 11-0 the final score there. Matthews falls to Badger 4-2. We have Lakeside getting the win over Brooklyn. Probably not Brooklyn, New York. A lot of schools in the scoreboard today, Scotty, that could be really cool. We could have played Mars, could have played Brooklyn, but probably not Brooklyn, New York. 3-0. Lakeside gets the win. Gerard falls to Hubbard 3-0. Poland all over Niles 10-0 the final score there. Hoban falls to University on the road 1-0. Beaver with a 4-0 shutout over Hopewell. Orange ties Gilmore Academy at 1. And then Mohawk over in PA gets the win over Riverside 2-1 the final score there. Last but not least, we had girls soccer. We had 6 matchups going on last night. Pymatuning Valley and Grand Valley, they draw and no score. So a defensive grudge match going down in Grand Valley. No one able to score in that one. Springfield gets a big win over Columbiana, 3-1. Edgewood, they get the win over Harvey, 2-0. Lakeside played Brooklyn on the girls' side as well. Lakeside gets the win in both those matchups, 3-0 for the girls. Brookfield, they fall to Bristol 5-2. And Hoban gets the win over Madison Comprehensive. Whoa. 2-1, the final score there. I've never heard of that school. The Knights get the win on the girls' soccer side, the volleyball side as well. Big night, Scotty. A lot of scores coming in. I know it's a lot to digest. I want to go back to this Crestview game real quick, and we're going to pop off the scoreboard. We'll talk about it here. I was doing some digging last night, Scotty, and no one's beaten Crestview in a set in this season in the MVAC. No one's taken a set from them. In fact, no one's taken a set from Crestview since 2021 inside the MVAC, and that's Brookfield. Crestview hasn't lost a home game since 2020. But the thing I was digging up last night, Scotty, I was wanting to see what MVAC team was pushing Crestview the most or has scored the most against Crestview, and then the answer would kind of surprise you a little bit. The team that has scored the most points in a match inside the conference against Crestview this year is the 5th place team in the conference, Newton Falls.
Newton Falls, wow.
Newton Falls against Crestview the second time they played. I wrote down the numbers, so I got to bring them up. Second time they played, it was 25-11, 25-13, 25-18. Now, dominating still. You still look at those scores and say, Crestview got in, got out. We're all good. But 11 plus 13 plus 18 is 42. For those of you that don't want to do the mental math, 42 is the most points scored against Crestview in the. Actually, it was 18 in the second set, by the way. If anyone's curious, 11, 18, 13 was the final score of that match. But either way, so that is the most anyone scored against them is 42 points. Then one behind Newton Falls is LeBray, who still has to play them a second time, so they have another chance. LeBray has scored 36, 11, 12, 13. Those two teams, Newton Falls and LeBray, are also the only two teams that have a match with Crestview inside the conference with 3 sets where they got into double figures, right? So even Garfield, who's sitting at second right now, who has the chance to go and beat Crestview on Thursday to tie up the conference, even Garfield did not have 3 sets where they were in double figures. Now Garfield is the only team in the conference to hold a lead over Crestview more than like 1-0 or like they had a substantial lead in deep in the set. 15-14 was the score in set 1 when Garfield came into Crestview. Crestview, we all know, scored the next 11 points, 125-15 in set 1, and then ran away with that match. So very interesting, Scotty, that Newton Falls is the team that has really scrapped the most against Crestview in the league this year.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't have guessed
Mm-hmm.
Newton Falls. And, there's other team. I think the second team you mentioned was
LeBray.
LeBray.
LeBray has a match with 36 combined points. They had three scores in double figures, 11, 12, 13 were the set scores for LeBray. They'll play each other again, I believe, next Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken.
Do you think aside from obviously they're talented, but it kind of goes back to what we've talked about in the past, right? Recently, and just kind of the culture thing in sports and what Crestview has built, right? Uh,
Mm.
Probably more than anything else.
What Alicia Hour has built at Crestview. I mean, she was successful way before this senior class came in. She's had, I mean, when we started covering them, remember Crestview was one of the first teams. I mean, they were good back in 2017. And these players that we're talking about now, Laney Hour, Grace Hour last year, Abby M, they weren't even they weren't, sniffing the program yet. So they've had players for a long time. They've been into a lot of regional tournaments. They've won a lot of districts. They're just a solid program that's always good. But right now, Scotty, they've gone from good to elite right now. And in the last, you could say 4 years, I would say last 4 years, Crestview volleyball has been the class of the area, bar none. I think they proved that when they went into Fitch last week and they beat the Falcons pretty handily. We weren't here to talk about that because that was all the way last Wednesday, so we haven't even had a show together since that happened, and we wouldn't have even if you were here last Wednesday. But yeah, Crestview goes to Fitch last Wednesday, Scotty. They just dominate the Falcons, and I think in the area now, not on the YSN family because Hoban's up there doing what they're doing, but in our Tri-County area, you talk about Crestview and Fitch. They were probably 1 and 2 when you look at volleyball teams that were really being impressive this year and playing at an extremely high level against a lot of really good teams. Um, and Crestview went there to their place and they didn't have an answer. 25-13, 25-15, 25-22. Um, they couldn't stop IBM. She had 24 kills against them. I mean, that was this Crestview's message. Like, we are number one in this area, bar none.
Do
Now, the
you
power ranking numbers, though, do not reflect that. The power ranking numbers that are all math, by the way, not our opinion, want to always continue to put that out. These are numbers that we put into our algorithm that pop out the rankings. Lakeview still number 2 ahead of Crestview, but I think the eye test, I would not bet against Crestview if we we don't bet obviously, but that's just a phrase. But I would not wager against Crestview in that matchup.
do you think it's more like their effectiveness? Do you think it's more just the continuity, like everyone on the same page, or is it the versatility of the players that they do have?
Well, one, Scotty, they have the best player in the area by far, and probably in the YSN family by far, in Abby Ebbs. We all know what she's doing, where she's committed. Best, everyone knows that's kind of locked down. Um, so that helps. But then they have talent. They have so much talent, and then they go beyond just talent because they're extremely well coached. They have never gone into any of these MVAC games that they've been dominating with lackadaisical attitudes. They've never once gone into an MVAC game going, well, we're gonna win this game. Let's not even try. And then here, that's how teams sneak up on you when you don't have that championship mindset every single night. And that comes down to coaching. That is coaching 101. To have that program not have a league loss in astronomical amount of years. You have to go back before they were even members of the MVAC. They've never lost a match as members of the MVAC. They've lost one set to Brookfield, and that was 2021. That's it. So you go through all of that, Scotty, and you would think that there'd be one game out there where they would be a little bit lackadaisical or not play their best, and maybe a team sneaks up and gets at least close, but it's never happened. No one's been close, especially in the last 2 or 3 years. No one has been even close to beating Crestview inside the MVAC. It's been straight sweeps. No one's getting the 20. 18 is the most anyone's gotten this year. That's Newton Falls. Uh, uh I'm amazed that mindset has been that consistent with high school kids, because let's face it, high school kids are young. Are susceptible to that laziness a little bit. If they're winning a lot, they get a little bit numb to winning. Um, and to do that for 3 or 4 years completely straight with not even a single set where they go, well, we don't have to try that hard today. We're only playing inter MVAC opponent name there. And then a good talented team might sneak up on you and win that set, but no, because there are talented teams in the MVAC this year, Scotty. I mean, LeBray, Garfield, and Champion all have double-figure wins. So they're definitely talented teams. They all have 13 or more wins. They all have talent. They all know how to win volleyball games, but they haven't been able to touch Crestview at all, because there's this elite championship mindset that program has that's way up here and keeps them way up there consistently. And it's really good. It's really awesome to watch.
Yeah, it's really impressive, and like you said, to do it, and you know,
I mean, it's almost like it
at this
reminds.
level, and have no like any sort of like just off night or
Mhm.
any inkling of okay, could there be a drop off here? Um,
It
because
remind it reminds me of Champion from 2017 to 19 in softball, where they were just so dominant. Everyone they played, no matter who it was, they were just winning by a huge margin. They had no letdown at all. But the difference there, Scotty, is 17 to 19, and it would have been 20. They would have won state that year if it wasn't for COVID-19. So 17 through 19, those 3 years of those that was all one senior class kind of holding them on their shoulders and driving them through. And then, when 2020 happened, that senior class had to graduate and didn't get to play their last season. Um, and then we've seen Champion not win a district championship since. Very talented teams, very good Champion softball teams, very strong program. They've run into some really good. I should say not win a regional championship since, but they used to be state powerhouses, going to state every year, and that senior class drove them there. And then ever since they went, they've been trying to get back to state. But for Crestview, they've had more than just one senior class roll in and have the success.
yeah, you said it, going back to the beginning days of our coverage.
Right, that's
20.
2017. I mean,
Yeah,
that's 1, 2, 3. If you subtract 2020, 1, 2, 3. Well, actually, 2020 counts for them because COVID didn't come up until the winter. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the 8th year that they've been ridiculously dominant. And that's 2 senior classes.
yeah, that's significant. I mean,
And I got to give the players this year that have come into big roles a lot of credit, because I'll admit, even me, I had some questions of whether or not Crestview would be as dominant this year as they were last year without players like Grace Hour. I said, you know what? They still have Laney, I get it, but what's their setting role going to be there? They've always run a 6-2 with Grace and Laney Hour setting. So who's going to come in and be that second setter? And Sophia Stewart has just rocked that role all year as the new setter, as a junior. Then, you lose a libero who really gets balls up like crazy, and you wonder who's going to replace Emily Denny. And then Bailey Ash comes in as a defensive specialist. And I know they rotate liberos, but it seems like, especially lately, Bailey Ash has had a hold of that position. She's doing a great job as her first year as a consistent varsity player. You look at players like Natalie Blackman, who plays libero every now and then, but if not libero, a defensive specialist. There's players like that either didn't see the varsity floor last year or saw very little of it. they're coming up this year and they're taking their new roles and they're running with them and still competing at that Crestview level. They're not just good, because if they were just good, Crestview would take a little bit of a step down. They're all playing way up here at Crestview's level last year. I think if I had to compare teams and really start to like split hairs a little bit, I think last year's team was still a little bit better. But this year's team, one thing they do a lot better than last year, in my opinion, is their service rotation 1 through 6 are all super aggressive and very accurate serving. I mean, you look at their service errors as a team, they don't have very many. And last year, it was kind of like 1 through 4, and then they'd had a couple of servers in there that would just come and pretty much just be getting the ball over and trying to be on target. But now it's 1 through 6. They're getting it over, they're keeping it in, but they're also super aggressive serves that put a lot of pressure on the other team's defense. So I think serving this year is actually better than last year. I think Abby Emch is playing on a ridiculously better. I mean, last year was good. This year is like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what I'm seeing out of Abby Emch. It like you're starting to see Abby Emch is going to be ready to go at Pitt. Like last year, you watched her. Last year's Abby Emch probably wouldn't be Pitt ready if she went from if last year was her senior year and she went to Pitt. This year, you start to see those skills. It's like that's going to come in handy in college. That's a college level play. That's it. Not even college. That's a number one in the country level play right there. So you're starting to see IBM play at that level, which is ridiculously good. And then Lainey Hour having a great season. She just got her 1,000th career assist. It's just fun to watch. I mean, what can you say about Crestview volleyball? They're fun to watch, and between them and Hoban, we're just blessed with two really elite volleyball teams in the Ysn family.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things, and I think when you get older, not there's certain things that you think about sports wise and certain opinions you'll have, and they won't necessarily change, and you'll always kind of think the same. But one of the things, Anthony, that I've kind of has changed for me over the years is I do appreciate greatness and
Oh
getting to
yeah.
see that greatness. Yes, I want the parity. I want everyone to have a good shot at it, but when the greatness, when you're witnessing it, the older I get, I think when I was younger in my 20s and right out of high school, I um like I appreciated it, but I really, everything was going on in my life, and I was thinking about what I wanted to do. Now that I'm kind of settled in, I appreciate like those dominant teams in sports even
Mm.
more, and it's something that's fun to be a part of for sure.
You know what I've noticed in sports fans kind of society? Um, Greatness is fine as long as there's also parity. Parity without greatness is boring. That's what we saw in college basketball men's side this year. It was like no one team was even that good, that great. So it was like kind of a boring season in my opinion. Kind of a boring tournament really. Because there was that one team that you were kind of either rooting for if you love it, or you're rooting against because you don't want to see that team in. There wasn't that kind of season. So parity is boring if there's not greatness attached to parity. So um, that's what I've kind of noticed. Have you noticed that too? Like I thought this was probably one of the most parity driven men's basketball seasons in college that we've seen in a long time. But yet it felt kind of boring because there was never one consistent team that was even dominant at all.
Uh, yeah, I definitely feel that way. Um, too.
Because the upsets, that's what excites people. But if no one looks great all the time, then it really never feels like a big upset when people get beat.
Yeah, like it just I haven't really thought about it like that, but as far as like thinking about college basketball, you're right. This past
It was
season,
just kind of, and I think the women's game had the perfect window to have Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese kind of blow up because the men's game was over there, not having any kind of marquee storylines and not being that interesting. And here come the women's game with a bunch of just like character-driven players that are just kind of fun to watch and then have that drama, the drama that we love in sports so much because they don't like each other and they kind of bicker with each other in the media and on the floor. So it was kind of perfect timing for the women's sports to kind of come in and say, hey, I guess men's basketball is in a window where they're not that interesting and we'll just kind of take that mantle, and they ran with it. So the other thing, you want to talk about dominance, Scotty. Everyone likes to talk right now, not being a homer. Chiefs are kind of like that team in the NFL. Everyone's like, oh, we're so sick of the Chiefs. Look at college softball. Oklahoma has won back to back to back to back championships. Four-peat in Oklahoma. They've lost something like 4 games in the last 4 years total. It's just like, oh my gosh, they're so good. Ridiculously dominant. But there's a lot of parity under them, right? So it's kind of one of those things where like, yay, parity, but then at the end of the day, you're like, it doesn't matter because Oklahoma's going to win.
Yeah, because they're just
ridiculous,
like you said,
man.
They're elite, and that's, I mean, winning 4 in a row, like 3 in a row is one thing, and the Chiefs could do it for the first time in the Super Bowl era.
I was kind of surprised that no one had won 3 in a row. You know it because you know history, but when I heard it again, I was like, huh, because there have been a lot of dominant teams over stretches, like the Steelers in the 70s, but they always had that little gap where they couldn't win the 3rd in a row. Same thing with the Patriots. Like they were dominant for years, but they just could never win that 3rd in a row. So I was kind of surprised.
Yeah, and even some of the you think
like
about
the Niners in the 80s and the early 90s, you thought
San Francisco.
they would have won 3 in a row, but it didn't happen. Dallas in the 90s, nope, didn't happen. Denver almost did it. I think if they weren't at the very end of John Elway's career when they won their first 2, they might have been able to win 3 in a row.
Yeah, they would have had a shot.
They got kind of lucky in their 2nd in a row because the Falcons were not the team that should have been in that Super Bowl from a skill level standpoint. We all know that like the Vikings were the team that should have probably been in that Super Bowl, but they flubbed it in the championship and missed that. Morton Anderson missed that big field goal down the stretch. If you remember that game back in the mid 90s, that was actually the first Super Bowl. Like I remember watching, like I have vivid memories watching, was the first Broncos win over the Packers.
Yeah, I remember that Super Bowl.
The helicopter
as well, yeah.
Not always hit where he like helicoptered into the end zone. Craziness.
Yeah, that was a fun Super Bowl.
Craziness. Scotty, we're gonna take a break. When we come back, we're gonna ask the most dangerous question in all of sports streaming. We're gonna ask what's on your mind. That's coming up next on Running Point, brought to you by our good friends over at Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
21 News delivers the news as it happens, using the latest technology from where it happens.
Live here outside the Mahoney County.
On air, online.
Wednesday afternoon weather update.
Very dangerous.
And on the 21 News social media platforms.
I'm on the road right now.
21 News, the Valley's only locally owned source for trusted news since 1953.
Craftsmanship to us is 60 years of pride and dedication.
Passed down from generation to generation.
The hardwood floors that your kids take their first steps on.
The solid wood doors you quietly close at night.
The things we create day in and day out are the products that end up turning your house into a home.
At Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods, uncompromising quality and craftsmanship built our business.
And it will keep us moving forward for generations to come.
Going the extra mile at Greenwood Chevrolet means we want to take care of the community that takes care of us too.
And we have to work together always. And that's how you stay in business for 40 years.
I love being a helper because when I help somebody, it makes me feel good.
It means a lot that I can make a difference in others' lives.
So I will do everything I can and just being there for them every step of the way.
I want them to know within the first 5 minutes that they could depend on me. That's what going the extra mile means, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Before the lights come on, before the workday begins, before a long day is ended, or it's time to have fun. It all starts with the people at Joe Dickey Electric. From replacing a light fixture in your home to building a substation for your business, no job is too big or too small. The people of Joe Dickey Electric power them all. Joe Dickey Electric, over 60 years of powering the Mahoning Valley.
And welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you top of the screen. They get the big logo on Wednesdays. Greenwood Chevrolet probably loves Wednesdays because they're like, man, we get 2 logos. They're really big. They're right over the heads. Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. They go the extra mile for you. Scotty Mencher, my sidecar, my right-hand man, literally right hand. Although it's technically my left, but to you guys, it's the right because it's mirrored. How we doing, Scotty? We doing good? You ready for this? You ready for this week?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right.
Let's get dangerous.
Yeah, there's the tagline. Let's go. Scotty, what is on your mind today?
Okay, so today I wanted to touch on, as it is in season, I definitely wanted to get your thoughts on some high school football and thoughts on the MLB postseason as well. But to start out, I wanted to tackle high school football, pun intended. And I wanted to talk about Struthers. We talked about them a little bit on previous shows before, and I just wanted your thoughts, Anthony. They're sitting at 4-1. We're 5 games in on the season. They had, the South Range hasn't lost to anybody, so it's hard to say, that it was such a demoralizing loss when you lose the South Range, because it seems like nobody beats South Range. But I just wanted to know, for you, do you think that Devin Bram in that running game for Struthers, do you think it's good enough? Obviously, it looks like they're going to get into the playoffs. They have a tough matchup with Poland. I think it's the last game of the year. But do you think Struthers can be a serious threat? They have a great running game and a great O-line, but do you think at times maybe they're too dependent on it?
No, I don't, because I think when you watch that South Range team, that was the one team they played that was like way up here, right? The obviously the best team on their schedule. And really, the run game was working. It was having success. The reason they didn't win that South Range game was turnover. I mean, like they just didn't play clean. Block punt for a touchdown. They had a big run break that would have gotten them at least 1st and goal inside the 5. It ends with a fumble. Guy comes from behind, strips the ball, and South Range gets the ball and dodges that threat. And even after all that, Struthers still avoided the running clock. And when all that happens against South Range, usually it's a 45-0, get in, get out. But Struthers kind of proved in that game it's working, right? They just, unfortunately, in the biggest game of the year, they weren't clean. And the same thing with Poland. I mean, the block punt for a touchdown, an interception return. You can't have that kind of stuff happen when you're playing, a great team like South Range. So I think Struthers is fine. That's all fixable stuff. Just clean up the game, clean up the football. They did that in week 6. I don't see anything in Struthers' game that tells me they can't go and compete in Division 4. Now, Division 4 is a gauntlet in football right now. You look at the Division 4 and what is going to be in Struthers' way. I mean, not only are some teams like that are outside the YSN family, like I think Field is a team to watch in Division 4 that's right there, that's going to be a problem in the playoffs, but we all know who you got there. You have the West Branches of the world. You have Ursulines. You had Hubbard. Division 4 is just really, really good. It's going to be hard to go through those playoffs in the region and get through it.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard. But you think it was like less of a thing where it was a wake up call and maybe Struthers, they're thinking, we need to change things up here. You think it was less of that and more of that just if they would have played, if they just play clean, don't turn the ball over, they'll at least have a shot even against some of the really tough competition.
Now, Radar brings up another Division 4 team. We have to fact check Radar a little bit. Sometimes Radar gets a little wild and crazy. So we have to fact check him a little bit. It's just Perry. Massillon Perry is a different team, so you don't want to get those two confused. Massillon Perry are the Panthers, not a YSN school. Perry Pirates in Perry, Ohio. They are a YSN school. They are in Division 4. They are the reigning state champions in Division 5, moving up a division. So when you talk about Division 4, we're talking about Struthers. They're going to have to find a way through Perry too. And Perry, very, very good. They're rolling through their season, except for that Kirtland loss in triple overtime. Probably the wildest game of the year so far in Northeast Ohio or the YSN family. Perry, can they do it? Yeah, absolutely. Perry can do it. They have a quarterback that's going to Toledo to play football, Walter Moses. So, Perry can definitely repeat. They're definitely a threat to go out there and win state championship again. Division 4, though, like we said with Struthers, it's going to be really tough. It's a lot of good teams in Division 4.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on another one of those good teams before I get your thoughts on baseball. What are your biggest impressions of Ursuline so far this year? They had that early season loss against, I believe it was Walsh Jesuit, but since then they look like a juggernaut. Are you as I don't want to say I definitely I'm not surprised they won at all, and not surprised they won by a comfortable margin, but I was surprised that Ursuline just flat out kind of took Fitch to the woodshed a little bit. Were you as surprised, or is this something that you noticed very early on and you thought that, Ursuline, they're one of the best teams in the area and they're just on another level right now than most teams?
I think Ursuline is the best team in the area. I think their explosiveness on offense, the defense that they've been playing this year, they've been playing probably the cleanest football that we've seen Ursuline play. Last year, they took steps. 2 years ago, they were riddled with, just turnovers, penalties that would really cost them. Last year, it kind of went way down. This year, they're just playing very clean football, very disciplined football. When you add that to just the talent and athleticism they have, it's looking really good for Ursuline. Now they're in Division 3, so I misspoke. They moved up this year in the Division 3. But
okay,
what they did to Fitch, that's coaching, that's game planning one, because I think they took a lot of things that you saw from Fitch in the games prior. Now Fitch was undefeated. Props to them for getting the wins. But there were things in that film, Scotty, and I talked about it on Monday when I recapped the games. there were things in those Fitch wins that you really thought might come back to haunt them eventually, and it was one-dimensional offense, not being able to score a ton of points, little things that would stall drives, whether they be penalties or negative plays, but they get through it because they were playing really good defense, and they were still finding ways to score in the clutch situations, so they would get wins. Ysn said, okay, you're not going to be one-dimensional against us. Completely, we're going to stop the run. We're going to make you throw the ball, and Fitch just could not throw the ball against that defense. And then they also said, our offense is just going to expose your defense a little bit. And they did. It was an immaculate display of just game planning, executing a game plan perfectively, and just domination from Ysn's side of the football. I was really impressed with that discipline to stay with the game plan and the game plan in general. I think it was one of Coach Reardon's kind of best weeks of preparation for this undefeated Fitch team coming into Stambaugh Stadium and saying, I see what you're doing on film. I'm ready for it, and we're gonna completely take you out of your game. And it was really just a display of coaching. It was a display of execution, talent, athleticism. It was awesome football.
Do you think you talked about how they completely slammed the door on Fitch? Do you think it's one of those cases where Ysn, the defense is just that, like it's almost on another level, like it is at an elite level?
It's really good. I want to see them go up against a more multi-dimensional offense that can really test them, and they will, especially in 2 weeks. I mean, this week's going to be tough against Akron, St. Vincent, St. Mary, but in 2 weeks, Scotty, they play Villa and St. Joe's, and that'll be a big, big test for Ysn. We're going to learn just how good the Irish really can be when they play VASJ, because that'll be a really big matchup for the Irish. This week, don't want to overlook St. V's. They're obviously a very good program. They've been good for a long time. They're talented. So that'll be a tough game for Ysn, but I'm looking at next week and I'm going, ooh, VASJ. Give me some good football.
When a team is so good, like just stacked on both sides of the ball, and they go up against another good team, are you a guy that you want to see the good defense and some hard hitting, and you're really watching for the speed of the defense, or are you just like, give me, when it's two teams that good, you want to see the most fireworks possible and them scoring like up in the 30s, both teams?
I've said it before. I just want clean football. If it's clean defense and it's a defensive battle, that's great. If it's offenses playing well against good defenses, that's fine. I just don't want to see like turnover, fumble, penalty, holding. And it's like, it's 35-35, but because both defenses are just, coverage blown. Oh, there's a giant hole that I could run through. Hey, I don't want to see that kind of high scoring game. I want to see if it's high scoring, it's because there are really good plays being drawn up and good plays being made. Not because, that safety completely bit and you're wide open and Helen Keller could hit that throw, right? So I don't want to see that. I just want to see good defense, good offense on both sides. That's the kind of football I want to see. Now, am I Goldilocks a little bit with that? Sure. I want just perfect. I don't want too big or too small. I want just the right thing. Is that a little bit Goldilocks? So be it.
Yeah. So for you, it's not necessarily if it's two, rebuilding or two up and coming or two teams that are good, but you don't know if they're great compared to like two great teams go. For you, it doesn't matter. Like the quality of the teams doesn't affect the football you want to see, is what I'm saying. Like it does. You just want, no matter who's playing that night, you want to see good, clean football.
Yeah, of course.
You don't want to see sloppiness.
No one wants to see sloppy football. That's boring.
Okay, I got you there. And I don't know. I guess when I think about it, like in any sport, like when the pace of the game just doesn't feel right and teams are making miscues, I mean, it's not really fun in any sport. But football, I think maybe at times, when you see both teams making mistakes, it's more glaring and jarring because of how contact it is and fast paced. But interesting, good food for thought. Thank you, Anthony. I always love picking your brain on what's going on in the area. I guess as we close here, what do you? I don't know if you got to check out much of the action yesterday. Anthony.
Definitely checked out my action.
The Royals, yeah.
Whew.
So
we gotta score more than one run, Scotty. We gotta score more than one run. Ooh. I don't think we're gonna shut out our way through the playoffs. Yikes.
Yeah, it's I wanted to know, because the Royals last year, they really, it's been just a tremendous.
Yes, they were terrible last year, Scotty. Let's get over it.
Where they came from last year. Do you think they're capable in one season of reaching the ultimate goal?
Heck yeah, buddy! Look, they got the pitching to do it. Is their offense kind of spotty right now? Yeah, it is. They're in a point right now where they're trying to find those big hits. I get it, but Vinny Pasquantino is back in the lineup. He was hurt in the Houston series right after we played the Guardians in Cleveland. Went to Houston. He broke his thumb in Game 1. He's back in the lineup for the first time last night. That'll be huge. I mean, if he didn't get hurt, we would have had three guys back to back in our lineup that all had 100 RBIs. So having him back in the lineup will be kind of big. But the pitching is there. I mean, you just saw what Cole Reagans did to Baltimore last night, and now we have our ace Seth Lugo, who will probably get votes for Cy Young this year, going in Game 2. Our bullpen's pitching really well this month. I know it hasn't been like a great season overall for the bullpen. They've had their good and bad months, but in September, pitching really well. They pitched really well last night when Cole had to come out with hamstring cramps, which makes me nervous a little bit, but he's apparently A-okay. Yeah, I think they can do it. I mean, they have all you need. They have exactly what they had in 2014-15. They have guys that get on base, they steal the bases really well, and they pitch really well. I mean, that's what you need to win baseball. So they have what it takes. It's going to be a tough AL to get out of, because if we beat Baltimore, we have to go to New York and play the Yankees. And then if we get through that, hopefully it's 3 Central teams. Hopefully it's either Detroit or Cleveland coming out of up there, and we can say that 3 teams in the Central are playing for the World Series berth. Can you believe that? What if I told you before the season started, Scotty, that 3 AL Central teams would be playing for the pennant?
I would say,
and one of them was going to be Kansas City and Detroit. The Twins were not going to be in it.
I would say, Anthony, are you okay? Did you start drinking?
Did you take the wrong pills this morning?
Yeah.
Wow. Because everyone thought maybe the Twins would win the division this year, so maybe you would have been able to convince someone that 2 teams, Cleveland and Minnesota, would have gotten in. But if you would have told them, like, hey, 3 teams are going to be in, and it's not going to be Minnesota, they would have been like, get out of here and get to the psych ward.
Yeah, that's like, no, but like some people had the some people had the Tigers, but nobody had the Royals or the Guardians before the season.
I would argue more people probably thought maybe Cleveland than Detroit, because Detroit was a team last year that was also not that great, and they had Scooble coming up, but like no one was really convinced about what their offense could do. They didn't have a deep rotation at the start of the season. They definitely didn't start the season well at all. They had to like scorch the second half of the year to get into this point. So I think I know you like to live up the underdog mentality, Scotty, but I think more people were a little bit higher on Cleveland than they were Detroit this year.
I don't maybe. I mean,
but no one would have thought the Royals 106 losses last year.
Yeah, they have.
I'll give our GM credit. They went out and spent money. Like they got Cole Reagans last year in the trade deadline. They got Seth Lugo. They went out and they got people. They said, we have Bobby Witt Jr. We signed him to a contract, but we don't want to wait 6 years of that contract to compete. We want to get this kid to compete right now. And they went and they got people to help him compete. So props to them for spending some money. They gave Bobby Witt the biggest contract in franchise history. And all he did this year was lead the majors in average and hits.
Yeah, he said, I'll show you that it's worth it. He has.
But like if he did that and we were still a 90 loss team, it's like you would feel like you're wasting his contract a little bit. So they actually went out and they got people to put in place so the Royals could just compete right now and they wouldn't have to waste 5 years of his contract waiting for people to develop in the minor league system. So this is a lot different than 14 and 15, because if you remember in 13, the Royals, you could kind of tell they were starting to become good. In 13, they were like, I think 10 games above 500. They missed the playoffs barely. They were right there. So they were, but this year it's like they went from not even close to
yeah, they went from trash to one of the best, in the playoffs.
We're gonna go a little bit over, but one more thing, Scotty, and I've told you this before. I think I told you during one of the Super Bowl, conversations that we've had when you asked me what it was like to watch the Chiefs win. Watching playoff baseball is so much different than playoff football, because playoff football, you have one game on the day, you either win or lose, and it's just like that emotion. Baseball, it's like, we won, we got to win tomorrow. We got to win tomorrow. We got to win. It's a long burn. It's a slow burn.
Yeah, it is.
You're almost like you celebrate. I celebrate last night, but I'm also like so nervous because it's like we still have to win the next day. You get no chance to just kind of enjoy the win at all. It's like you got to win, you got to win, you got to win, you got to win, you got to win. So playoff baseball is like a slow burn, and this football is just like, bam, there you go, you won.
Yeah, it's like, worst case scenario, playoff football,
it's one day, one day a week for hopefully 4 weeks if your team gets to the Super Bowl. 5, because there's an extra week in there. But, baseball is like, hey, you won today. Guess what? You're playing tomorrow, and that stress is not going to end. It's never-ending stress for 2 weeks.
One more quick question I had for you, if I can.
All right, Scotty.
So, do you have a preference as far as, like, obviously you want the Royals to come out of the AL.
Right.
But do you have a preference at all whatsoever as to who you would like to see them face in the National League?
I tell you, there is someone and they lost last night, so I'm like, oh dang, I kind of like Atlanta because I have a lot of friends that are Atlanta Braves fans because I've met a lot of people in Atlanta and for Georgia Tech and stuff. So I kind of like support Atlanta a little bit. I kind of like rock the Atlanta. One of my favorite Georgia Tech hats that I wear a lot. It's a Braves hat. It just has the GT logo in the colors. But so I kind of like Atlanta. I would like to see a Braves Royals World Series, even though we just played them in the last series of the year and lost in 3. But I would like to see that. Braves would be fun. I don't think they're going to get past the Padres the way they looked last night. The way this Padres lineup is cooking right now. The Mets looked very special. But I think the Phillies, I think, are my pick. If I had to pick someone and put the money down on it, I think the Phillies are coming out of the NL.
You do, more so than the Dodgers. Interesting.
I do. I think it's just playoff baseball. I don't trust the Dodgers in playoff baseball because we've seen them more times than not fall off in playoff baseball.
They do. I think it was the pandemic year, shortened season. They won the World Series, but that's been it.
I think I'm not just saying this because we're lined up to play them. I think the Yankees are kind of that team that could fall off in the playoffs too, because they rely so much on power and just we're gonna hit home runs.
Judge and Soto.
And it's like I think I would much rather a high batting average team in the playoffs because we've only seen it's been a whole day. We had 4 games last night. We only had 1 home run, right? Home runs become a little more rare in postseason baseball.
What would you rather have going into the playoffs, Anthony? Would you rather have a great bullpen or like one of the best pitchers in baseball, like an ace starting pitcher or a shutout bullpen?
Great bullpen, and here's why: because you have that starter for 1 game out of the series, maybe 2. The bullpen is pretty much you're available every game, because you're only pitching 1 inning. So you saw what the Royals did in 14 and 15 with their bullpen. I mean, if we had the lead after 6, game over. Bullpen, hands down.
Well,
if you have that kind of bullpen and you can say, hey, all we have to do is win 6 innings of baseball and this is over. Lockdown, shut it out. Let's go home. I would love that. Let's do that. Over hey, we have to win this game because this is our ace. So if we don't win this game, we're in trouble. And I think that's the Tigers. If they didn't win with Skubal on the mound last night, they were in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, now you won with your ace.
And I kind of like how the Royals went into the ace game too. Because now it's hey, Reagan's got the job done. And now we have Seth Lugo, who has 16 wins on the year, going into game 2 trying to finish off that series. I kind of like that. I like that call by our manager.
It's fun. It's a lot. And I just love how during the regular season, the atmosphere in baseball is very chill, relaxed, laid back.
And then all of a sudden, these fans just come out of the woodworks for playoff. Where do you come from?
Yeah. And
oh, man.
There's that anxiety on every single pitch.
Every pitch. Every pitch, Scotty. I'm like...
Oh, God. Regular season.
That just went so wrong so fast. Did you see all that?
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, every pitch, Scotty, I was like, oh, I hate this. I hate this. It's so stressful. Playoff baseball is so different than football, and I'll say that a lot. I cannot handle playoff baseball. It's stressful.
It really is. It really is. But I'm happy you said you'd rather have the pen because that's what Guardians do have is a great ball.
Yeah, they have a pen. The issue that I can see is they've used a pen a lot. So it's do they have enough gas in the tank to last 2 more weeks? I think they do, but that's all going to be the question mark. I think they have. I could be wrong. I think they have the most innings pitched out of a bullpen in the AL.
I think they do. Yeah.
So they've used them a lot. And the other thing is, can their starters work a lead before you get to the bullpen? Otherwise, it's kind of a moot point. That's the double-edged sword. If you have a really good bullpen, you also have to make sure that you're holding a lead before that bullpen gets there. Otherwise, it's well, great, we can shut you down, but we're down by 3.
Yeah, our offense needs.
Yeah, so get a lead early, and your bullpen will be fine. That's the key for you guys. That was the key for us when we won. So, Scotty, it's been a blast. I want to remind everyone, because we didn't get to go up to the scoreboard, but you can find all the games that we're going to have tonight on the broadcast network. ysnlive.com/live is where you can find all the games that we'll be broadcasting tonight. We'll also have live shows tonight from Tavern 26 with Camel Memorial, the Benz and Western Reserve, and we'll also have Coco's Pizza with Canfield. That'll be DJ Oakley at Canfield for Coco's Pizza. We'll have Chris Colucci at the Benz for Western Reserve. No, actually, that was last night. Flip that. It's just Matt Marr and DJ Oakley tonight. So just Tavern 26 with Camel and Coco's Pizza with Canfield. Those are the 2 shows going on tonight. A lot of interviews from those athletes and coaches from those schools. Make sure to go down and get great food, also great interviews, great content from there. And check out the website tonight for what games will be on live. ysnlive.com/live is where you can find all the action. And we will sign off. Running Point always brought to you by our good friends over at Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Scotty will be back next week, next Wednesday.